Hello everyone, we're Team 4 and we're going to be presenting on the aXcess ergonomic implant port. I'm Sam Hires and I'm the project manager.
My name's Jackie Claveau and I'm the technical lead.
I'm Erin Heinley and I'm the manufacturing engineer.
I'm Justin Korn and I'm the quality engineer.
I'm Kaylee Perron and I'm product development. So first, we're going to look a little bit at the details of our design review. Today is March 28th. Our project number is 001. As I said, our project name is the aXcess ergonomic implant port, and this is our Phase 3 and Phase 4 design review. So a little bit of basic info on our device. It's used for subclavian access in order to administer IV fluids or medication, or for drug delivery in cases such as chemotherapy, or for blood access. This is an image of our implant port. For our meeting agenda today, we're going to first review the status of action items from our last design review, Phase 2. We're going to review the deliverables as specified for this phase. We're going to review the quality plan for responsibilities, the design and project plan, review any changes in scope, the status of our DHF, and any other issues. So first is the status of action items from our last design review. In terms of changes, our design plan has had the addition of our risk management plan information, as well as an update to our part materials and their suppliers, the addition of our manufacturing procedure, as well as the stations and equipment that we're going to need, adding our packaging, sterilization, age and transit testing information, and updating our packaging supplier, which we'll talk more about later. In the SCFMEA, we also had to update the packaging supplier to Clean Cut, who is more able to fulfill the needs of our project. As far as our other deliverables from Phase 2, none of them had any large changes to them. Moving forward, we're going to look at the status of the deliverables for Phase 3 and Phase 4.
One of the major deliverables for this phase was the full master validation plan. This document contains the details for the sample size, test instructions, and expected results for verification testing to establish if we built the product correctly to the specifications that we set. Validation testing to determine if we built the correct product for our customers' needs. Process validation testing to determine if the process for building the product is effective and repeatable. And equipment validation testing to determine if we selected the appropriate equipment for manufacturing. Sample sizes were based either on variable or attribute data, and steps for revalidation were also established at this time. The team also needed to determine the effective cost of our product. We based the prices of individual components based on research and personal experience, and in general rounded up to get the worst case scenario. The cost of the 16 components necessary to produce the device summed to a total of $134, and the total cost of goods and services to get the product to the customer comes in just over $300. These numbers are likely an overestimate and would decrease with more accurate quotes and after developing a relationship with our suppliers.
So once the parts reach our facilities, all materials must undergo an incoming inspection and go into storage. We'll pull each part when needed for assembly and have a quality control inspection between each step. We expect most of our production and assembly would be completed in a single run since most of the machining and fabrication was done elsewhere. Once we have a final part, we will give it a new identification and send it out for packaging and sterilization. Once we receive the packaged part, it will undergo another incoming inspection and go into storage.
The manufacturing procedure consists of the steps it takes to assemble the implant port, as well as packaging and sterilization of the device. The steps mentioned in this presentation consist of the first 8 steps of the manufacturing procedure. In the first 8 steps, it includes inspecting each part of the implant port, the setup of the titanium base, and the attachment of the rubber septum. Altogether, the manufacturing procedure has 26 steps. Here are steps 9 through 16, which consist of making of the catheter. And steps 17 to 26 consist of the attachment of the fastener to the catheter and the titanium base, the packaging of the sutures, and the packaging and sterilization of the implant port.
Our manufacturing router includes our different manufacturing procedures from 0 to 7 and would be available on the floor for our operators to see so that they could see a brief description of what must be done at each station. We have 4 stations in order to consolidate some of the steps of our procedure to increase the flow in our manufacturing.
Testing was chosen based on the matrix provided by Nelson Labs, and just to briefly go over our rationale, because the testing is an implant, we had to consider most of the biological effects. The catheter portion is also in contact with blood, so we had to do hemocompatibility testing as well. And the implant has a permanent contact duration, which is defined as greater than 30 days. So it was also important to include carcinogenicity and chronic toxicity studies.
The verification plan has similar content to the master validation plan, but with an emphasis on the verification testing. The devices are assessed primarily for device functionality with these tests, but some tests assess biocompatibility, packaging integrity, shelf life, and key design parameters, which are covered in more detail in the specific test plans. Another incredibly important part of this phase was the development of the instructions for use. This documentation contains info ranging from intended use and contraindications to educate the physicians on patients who would benefit from usage of the device, as well as instructions for implantation and using the product post-procedure to ensure that the highest level of safety for the patients is ensured. There is also information on warnings and misuses to discourage improper implantation of the device, supplier information for the different out-of-house products if customers need to reach out with questions, as well as warranty information.
It's critical for FDA standards to have a label present on all levels of packaging. So this is an example of one of the labels that would be present in one level of our packaging. It has a reference number for the device so that it could be backtracked, as well as having different symbols that represent various elements of our device, such as the fact that it is sterilized with EO.
So the plan for packaging this device involves placing the device on a die card labeled with the company name. This will then be sealed in a Tyvek pouch to prevent contamination. One pouch is one product, which will then go in one product box with the label on it, and 5 product boxes will be put in one shipping container. In order to validate the packaging, several tests will be performed, and the standards are listed on the right side of the slide. For our strength test, we chose peel testing, and for our integrity test, we chose a dye penetration test. Smudge testing will also be done to ensure that the label does not smudge, and visual inspection will be done in order to test the smudge testing in addition to any other potential flaws of the packaging. To choose our sample size, we show the sample calculation down there because we're doing a 95-99 confidence interval, which means that 95% of the devices manufactured will pass inspection 99% of the time. And testing will be performed by PCL, a packaging specialist.
To validate that our product can sustain a shelf life of 6 months, we conducted age testing at Westpac because we knew they could accommodate our selected parameters and sample sizes in their chambers. Based on the research of our materials and their data sheets, we decided 60 degrees Celsius aging temperature and 15% humidity were feasible and calculated a 14-day accelerated aging time was appropriate for our application. In parallel, we conducted a real-time aging test where we would set the packages on a shelf for 6 months in ambient conditions. In terms of acceptance criteria, we want to ensure the sterile barrier of the packaging was intact and that the device is still functional.
Next, the team needed to verify the sterilization method was sufficient for the intended use. EO sterilization will be used because it is best suited for the materials in the device and the fact that the device is only cleared for a single use. A variety of tests will be conducted, some of which, like bioburden, will be conducted at regular intervals to ensure that the sterilization standards are continuously met. 3 loads of sterilization will be conducted for the major test to ensure that the sterilization process works reliably every time, and the devices will be tested in both a high-density packaging configuration, which is 5 devices per shipper, and a low-density configuration with only 1 device per shipper with dunnage to supplement. This will effectively test the worst-case scenarios for issues multiple times.
Our transit testing protocol is similar to the package validation protocol, but there is an emphasis placed on ensuring that the packaging maintains integrity after transportation. Peel testing, dye testing, smudge test, and visual inspection will be done and performed by Westpac, and the applicable standards are shown.
When running a time study in our manufacturing procedure, we limited the time study to just the steps that are described in our router and the manufacturing procedure itself. All time that would be added due to having to order parts or send things out to suppliers in order to be sterilized is not included here. It's been divided into manufacturing time, which would be time to actually assemble the device, and quality time, which would be time to check and make sure that the device has been assembled correctly. Overall, we found that there would be 12 minutes of time actually assembling the device and 25 minutes of time spent checking to ensure that the device was assembled correctly. This would total 37 minutes of time.
So then an equipment validation was done for the injection molding machine to make sure it is installed properly and operates as intended. One part of the equipment validation is to determine the high, low, normal parameters and edges of failure. For the injection molding machine, the parameters were established by changing the temperature of the machine and the timing to create the mold for the catheter. Then a process validation was performed to establish the consistency of the normal parameters, which were determined to be 375 degrees Celsius and cooling for 2 minutes. Using 95-99 confidence and reliability and assuming the data was variable, 30 catheters were developed for this testing. A failed catheter means that the dimensions are incorrect and the catheters break when 15 newtons of force is applied to the catheter. The process is deemed successful if a CPK value of over 1.33, which means that the process is capable and meets specification limits.
In order to validate the silicon curing process and equipment, IQ and OQ acceptance matrices were made. To the right is shown a snapshot of the IQ acceptance matrices, and then testing was done to determine high, low, and nominal values for time and temperature for silicon curing. This was done by start the oven at the processing temperature of 160 degrees Celsius and cure for 1 hour, increasing by 10-degree increments and inspecting after each curing until defects are noted or until the maximum oven temp was reached. The same procedure was followed, but in decreasing increments of 10 degrees and inspected until it was observed that full curing has not occurred. The same procedure was followed for time for curing, starting at 1 hour and increased by 10 minutes until defect is observed. And again, to find the lower value, time was decreased by 10 minutes until it was observed that full curing has not occurred. And failure for this test was determined as curing of the silicone not happening.
As part of one of the final checks of our design to ensure that all of our documentation had been done correctly, had fulfilled all of the requirements as laid out by the FDA, and could be easily found by others in our DHF, we completed a design transfer. This includes all of the document reference numbers as described in the glossary of our DHF and has been reviewed by all team members and approved. Additionally, we had to complete a device master record index. This is to ensure that anyone who picked up our device would be able to manufacture it with this record in hand. It includes the part numbers for our full assembly, as well as all of the different parts that go into that, including the titanium base, sutures, plastic fastener, septum, and catheter. It includes our design history file reference number, as well as the router and flow chart to follow our manufacturing procedure.
So the masturbation validation report is to ensure that all equipment and processes for the device have been properly documented and validated. Each of the following tests had to meet the accepted results, or else there will have to be revalidation of that particular step. Since all the required testing have met all the criteria, the implant port can be commercialized to the open market.
With all of this in mind, it has been found that through Phase 4, the device has met all of the functional requirements as well as the documentation standards. Moving forward, we'll be looking at the quality plan for responsibilities of our project. In addition to all members of the team reviewing and signing their consent to every specific form that went through, the team did final checks of all documentation and the entire design process using the Design Master Record Index and Master Validation Report. In terms of scope changes, there are none at this point or through Phase 3 of our design process. Next, we're going to look at our design plan and project schedule, which will be the same as the beginning of our report, so it's not included in this presentation. The status of our DHF is going to be discussed next. The DHF is still being compiled electronically on a Google Drive and through Canvas. Our revision system has stayed the same using AA, AB, AC, and so on, as is defined in our design plan. The team has compiled a glossary for the DHF that includes the document numbers and revision histories for every document so they can be easily found. There are no other subjects to be brought up at this point. Next, we're going to look at the design review action item log, so all of the things that we still have to complete going forward. We need to submit our final presentation and our design review minutes from 3 and 4, as well as compile final updates to our DHF and comment and respond to the final presentations. All members of our team are in attendance at this meeting, as can be seen on the table in the next slide. Normally, there would be an independent reviewer that would be present. Due to the nature of this project, however, there is not. Thank you for your time.